Hi, I'm Jean Schumacher. I'm founder of Simply Plant Based, where we have a lot of programs to help you to change your health destiny. Wait till you hear. This woman has won 8 U.S. national championships, 2 Pan American gold medals, setting a world record. And let's not forget, she won a medal in the Olympics. This Underdog story is on Amazon. You can see it. It's chronicled in the movie called Personal Gold. She's one of the star athletes of this most powerful movie called Game Changers. And if you haven't seen that, shame on you. You need to go watch this movie. It's incredible. And last but not least, her latest initiative is founding the nonprofit Switch for Good, which has the goal to provide a community platform for people to share their dairy-free stories and help motivate others. So Dotsie Bausch, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me here today.
Yay. I'm glad we're doing it. Thank you for all you do. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, okay. How did you get into competitive cycling? I mean, did you just wake up today and say, hey, I'm going to go start riding a bicycle? Or was that always a lifelong passion? What's going on?
No, I came into the sport very late. I came in at 26 is when I picked up my first bike. Interestingly enough, I found it in the strangest way. I was healing towards the end of my healing journey from anorexia that I almost lost my life to, and fought really hard at the end there to the end of my healing journey to not. It was about a 6-year struggle, and I was living out in Los Angeles by that time and working with an extraordinary therapist there who saved my life. And we're at one of our last sessions together. And she said, I know that you want to be able, one of your goals throughout this therapy was at the end to be able to move your body in a healthy way again, because I hadn't been able to do that for quite some years. I had the aspect of anorexia that is over exercise disorder. And I would spend 8-9 hours a day in the gym, just riddling my body down to nothing. And so I had a very unhealthy relationship with movement and exercise. And we worked a lot on that. And I got so much better in that category. And she said, I know you want to move your body in a healthy way again. So why don't you do this? She said, I think you're ready to just pick something that is not an exercise that you did unhealthfully. So let's not pick running. Let's not pick the Stairmaster. Let's not pick the gym equipment. Pick something that's just you really haven't ever done before, and let's chart that course. And so I said, well, what about cycling? Living out in Los Angeles, it's sunny pretty much every day. And for some reason that I felt like, gosh, what would it feel like to ride up and down Pacific Coast Highway and the wind in my face? I was gaining my freedom back because as an anorexic, I got so sick. I was, hospitalized a few different times. And I was also just not really, I wasn't in my life. I couldn't hold a job. I couldn't hold relationships. So I was feeling this newfound freedom. And so she said, I love it. Go get a bike. So I got a bike, and 14 years later, landed on the Olympic podium. So it's a real strange way that I got there, but I loved it. I obviously fell in love with it very quickly, and I just didn't ever quit. So they finally had to take me to the Olympics.
I get it. I hear you. And I know what you mean by the wind in your face, because I've been on a bicycle since I remember riding my sister's bike, which was much too big for me, and standing on the pedals because I couldn't reach the seat,
Oh.
And so I've been on a bike my whole life, and I've not even remotely close to what you're doing. Yeah, no. Yeah. Do you ride, by the way, still? I mean, do you still compete now?
No competing, but I ride for fun. I mountain
ride for fun.
Mostly.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah.
Well, okay. At what point did you go, today I'm going plant-based? What made you decide to go plant-based? What was your motivating factor? What was the aha moment?
Yeah. Well, so fast forward about 10 years from that point when I first, got on a bicycle and rode down Pacific Coast Highway. I as a former anorexic for a long time there, I really made it, it was a rule. I mean, it was part of my coming back to myself. It was part of my therapy I didn't want to ever have any food in the whole wide world that I wasn't allowed to have. So I was very committed to that for many, many years. And, I'm 36, let's say, by now, and I'm on the United States national team, and I'm racing my bike all over the world, mostly, Europe. And I kind of stumble upon some videos of what goes on behind closed doors in animal agriculture. So I see this and I go, that doesn't look right. That doesn't seem like that's something that would go on here in the United States. I mean, I think the government, regulates all that and, protects the people. I mean, that can't be, I thought that must be in another country, hoity toity, snotty American. And so I ended up just going down the rabbit hole. And you know what the rabbit hole is. And I know, those that are listening that have gone plant-based or vegan, at some point, whether you came into it because of ethics or you finally found the ethics, the rabbit hole is never ending. So then I just, I'm faced with this like soulful decision, because I now know I don't want to play a party to that, period. Like I cannot buy in or pay into that system anymore. That's the most, it's horrifying. And so I said, I'm going to go plant-based. And by this point, I'm very, very, very well healed. And it was very interesting because now, of course, that's going to take a lot of the foods that I ate before off my plate, because I was a meat eater and I was a dairy guzzler, and probably almost every single meal had some meat in it. I grew up in Kentucky and I grew up on fried chicken and, mac and cheese and potato salad, and, it all had animal stuff in it. So I thought, well, this is interesting because this is taking some things away, but God, my heart just suddenly feels so aligned. And I feel like I'm standing up for something that is so much bigger than I am and so much more important. So I just felt energized to figure it out, and I thought, well, I think I can do this. I know quite a bit about nutrition because throughout my therapy, I had learned a lot. So I just started. And I just sort of dove right in. It was almost an overnight thing with the meat. The dairy took a little bit longer, but I just dove in, and I didn't know what was going to happen to my performance or my output. I mean, that was definitely a question, because I'm at this point, 3 years out from Olympic Games. And of course I haven't made the team yet. I don't even know if I'm going to make the team. And I just thought, you know what, this is true. I'm living true to my values. This is goodness. And it reminded me of Greek arete, which is excellence that's bound by purpose or moral virtue. And I thought, if I am charting a course towards excellence, bound by, real purpose behind it, it's not going to let me down. And I just believed that. And it didn't not only not let me down, it was like I was on plant steroids. I mean, my performance, my output, my recovery, my strength, everything just tenfold. Like I was a much, much better athlete eating plants, and still am, because I'm still eating them, but I'm not so much of an athlete anymore.
Well, what was the most difficult obstacle you faced going plant-based?
Well, looking back, it's funny how you get rid of like painful or negative experiences a lot. So I don't have any memories of super negative. I did have some coaches and whatnot that said, oh, this might not be a good idea. I mean, you're pretty old already, and I don't know if you're going to be able to recover if you're not eating, the protein that you need from animals. So, I mean, I had some naysayers, but it just was like, in one ear and out the other. I didn't have any negative experiences in terms of like, gastrointestinal distress or anything physical that was negative. It was all positive. And I just started doing it. You know what I mean? I just started going to the grocery store and the farmer's market. And what I tell people all the time is, I think if you make it fun and if you look at it as discovery instead of necessity, like I have to do this, I've said I'm going to do this, and now, but look at it as you're discovering, then it's fun.
I love this quote, like from the movie Game Changers, like my body became like a machine.
Right.
I love that.
Yeah, no, it was definitely unexpected, but it just did. It was just, I think at the end of the day that, just my digestion, the journey from my mouth to my gut was so much cleaner and leaner and better and more nutrient dense and more phytochemical dense, settled with my gut just fine from the very get-go. I mean, I didn't eat as many beans as I eat now. Like that was probably a little bit, I ate a little less beans, right? You got to kind of just ease those in somewhat. But I just felt like I was able to produce work at a much faster rate than I was before. So then that would be, you would be pointing to my recovery time, my recovery period. Event in the Olympics was track cycling, and we train 3 times a day as track, like most Olympians, whatever their sport is, they're training 2 or 3 times a day. So everything was, train, eat, recover, sleep, train, eat, recover. That's all you're doing. It's very monotonous. And so I just noticed that in between training sessions was one of the first thing I noticed, like, oh my God, like I usually you go into the 3rd training session, you're like, please let me die during this because I cannot do this again tomorrow. It's just, but I was like, gosh, I'm kind of spunky, feeling a little spicy, able to like hit some times that normally I couldn't hit in the 3rd training session of the day. And then I just started noticing how much more energy I had in the morning when I got up.
Right.
That was way different because usually you wake up, we call it the athlete hangover, and it feels like an alcohol hangover where you get up in the morning, you've trained, you've done so much damage the day before, you wake up and you feel groggy and funky and brain foggy and tired. And it's like a hangover. And that it was not anywhere near the hangover that I had on animals. It just was a very mild hangover. And I could head out the door and train like pretty quickly from when I woke up, which was super rare. I mean, super like that. What my teammates were like, oh my gosh, chill. Like just chill, like we gotta have our 7th cup of coffee. Like, but I was like, yeah, I'm ready to go. I feel ready to go. Let's go.
No, for sure. The energy level is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine being, in an Olympic sport. I mean, like in training for that. But your teammates were like half your age?
Yeah, 2 of them were. Yeah, well, not half my age, but 10 years younger. Yeah.
Okay, a lot younger.
Yeah, a lot younger. The British team and the Kiwi team that we competed against in London, they were about half my age. Yeah, they were all 19, 20, 21, and I was, a few months shy of 40. So they were half my age, which is funny to think about, but I guess they could have been my children. Anyway, Mama showed them.
Look out, Mom's coming.
Right. Watch out for your mom. She's eating plants.
No, for sure. I mean, yeah, no. The fact that you're the old broad on the bike, going, hey, let's go. Come on. And they're like, no. I love this. Okay. This commercial, you filmed your own commercial in response to a dairy ad with 6 Olympic athletes.
I stopped drinking milk
11,
6,
9, 13 years ago.
I stopped dairy.
of all kinds.
And a funny thing happened when I stopped.
I stopped having joint pain,
I started having more energy.
more strength,
I was leaner.
and cleaner.
My skin cleared up.
I lost 50 pounds.
I stopped drinking milk and started living better
Listen to your gut.
and switch for good.
Discover the benefits of living dairy-free at switchforgood.org.
This is awesome. I just love this. Talk about how this came about.
Well, I got to tell you, this was pretty much the launch of Switch for Good. And a lot of what I've done at Switch for Good has steeped itself out of anger. I'm just going to be honest, and I'm not an angry human, but myself and other Olympians were just fed up with how much dairy is pushed on us athletes at the training centers. Like most of us trained at the Olympic training centers in Chula Vista or Colorado Springs, or mostly those 2. There's one up in Lake Placid, but that's mostly winter sports. And so inundation. It's like Dairyland. And the reason is because a lot of people don't know this. The dairy industry is the title sponsor of the United States Olympic Committee and has been for years. So they, it's an industry. It's not a health food. They push it quite a lot. And in the cafeteria, it was like, they'd have these recovery bars where you could just pop in and, get a smoothie or something in between workouts. And it was almost all dairy. And in my days, so 10 years ago was when I went to Olympics 10 years ago this year, they didn't even have any plant-based protein. So it was all whey protein. It was cottage cheese. It was yogurt. They had some hard-boiled eggs on there, which is not dairy, but it was just inundated. It was like dairy foods are the only way to recover. I'm positive today there's some plant-based protein in there because people are starting to get the memo. But so we were just sickened and really frustrated by them using our names and our medals and our likeness to sell a product that we didn't believe in and that nobody should believe in, because it's disgusting for human consumption, right? Especially as adults.
Well, so, you're consuming the lactating fluid of another species.
No sense. Just unravel that. Yeah, I know. And it's surprising how many people don't realize that's what it is. And I have a story for you later on that. But so anyway, so we just said, what if we put a commercial, an ad on the closing ceremonies of the Olympic Games? This was 2018. So it was the Winter Olympics in 2018 on NBC, right? Dairy's going to have they've been having ads during the whole Olympics, right? And just say, boom, hey, like try to change the public consciousness. Like, hold on a minute. No, there's like a whole bunch of Olympians that think this is not what you use for recovery. So we filmed it, and it was awesome. And it went on NBC, and the dairy industry got it kicked off. It was supposed to play in 6 markets, like across the United States throughout the Olympic closing ceremonies, as they were on NBC, and it played in a couple markets and then it disappeared. And anyway, follow the dollar every time. The dairy industry calls NBC, and they spend a few more dollars a year advertising than Switch for Good does. So I think them taking it off, that made for an interesting story the next day. That's for sure. And I think we almost got more press because, Big Brother got us kicked off because they didn't like what we had to say, because they have a product to sell and they need your money. So.
Wow. I did not know it got kicked off. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
You have a plethora of things to pick from. I mean, like the stuff that you've accomplished. What are you most proud of?
Well, making a very smart decision to marry my husband. He's the keeper. And that's a daily thing, right? It's a daily reminder of that was a very smart decision that I'm proud of. But I think when I step back, I look at Switch for Good, and I look at being an activist. I was always an activist from a little girl. It was always in my heart, I guess I should say, rather, and letting that come out and letting that part of me and that side of me emerge. I wake up every day like pissed off a little bit, and I kind of got that. Some of it's the athlete in me that's just like, you guys don't know what we're coming for you, like that feeling of like, you are going down. It may not be tomorrow, but it is happening. I just get so angry with the lies and the misinformation and the propaganda and the propping up of industry and not actual health of our population. So, I think being activist and Switch for Good is probably what I'm most proud of. And we have a long way to go, but we're having a damn good time doing it. We're only 3 years old, but we have an extraordinary team right now. And that's at the end of the day, right? When you're doing something as hard as what we're doing, as hard as what you're doing, directly swimming upstream, going against the status quo, you got to have some fun doing it.
Right?
It's hard. It's really hard. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's amazing what you're doing, honestly.
You too.
Okay. Athletes. They have very specific needs, like, as you know. So during your training, like, about how many calories a day were you burning? And like, walk us through a day of food, like when you were training.
Sure. Yeah. So I was burning through 6,000, sometimes 7,000 calories a day. I'm a female, obviously, and was about 140 pounds. So that's a lot of calories. And, my teammates and we used to call it force feeding, because there's, when you're training that hard, you're producing quite a lot of lactic acid. And, oftentimes if you're creating so much that a lot of it sits in your gut and it makes you nauseous, the lactic acid in your gut. And so you're quite often nauseous and you don't feel like eating. So sometimes we would call it force feeding. It was almost like a game, because we knew we had to get the repair in, we had to get the recovery, and we've got to get the calories in to replenish, especially some of us were trying to gain weight. Like I came to track cycling from road cycling. So I had a little bit more of a lithe, slender figure. So I was trying to put on a lot of glute and hamstring strength and weight. So I had to even eat, more than I was expending to be able to put on that weight and put on that muscle. So yeah, so it was a lot of force feeding. But I will say with plants, I never felt bloated, which was always the case. Just that gut funkiness, it's not always bloating. It's just, it can come in the form of kind of burny or acidic or just all sorts of yucky. And when it was animals, I could always count on, I'm going to feel gross after I eat this many calories of these animals foods, but that wouldn't happen with the plant-based food. So that was nice. I mean, that was like a gift. I would feel full, but never bloated, never like I couldn't, just go lay down and relax or go to sleep. So in the morning, I do not have a sweet tooth. I'm almost all like, give me like a pound of French fries way before I want a chocolate cake, right? Like I'm all savory salt gal. So in the morning, I always had to have food that fit that bill. And I always felt like I liked to start the morning with protein, because if I had like the typical like oatmeal and fruit, I was hungry 45 minutes later. And I'm not even kidding, like instantly. And it's a sugar hit, right? It's a good fibrous, wonderful sugar hit, but it is. So I was more of like the, cumin and red pepper tofu scramble, like, give me some heat, give me some protein, I love sprouted grain breads. My body has no issues with the gluten whatsoever. So I would do, toast and usually half an avocado spread around it. And a lot of times I would always start the day with a huge glass like I have now of lemon water. And then I like coffee. So have a coffee or two with that breakfast. And then in the summer, I would make a ton of smoothies, because that is it is an easier way to force feed than actual food that you have to chew. So the smoothies were big. And then in the winter, soups were big. And so they would be filled with all sorts of vegetables and beans and, deliciousness. And then the smoothies, I used a couple different plant-based proteins. I really like hemp. I love soy. And those are the two that I made back then. And although today you have like 30 different types of plant protein to choose from. So it's just kind of like, see what works for you and, see what fits the bill and see what goes down the best. And then doing, ground flax seeds and sesame seeds and all sorts of different fruits and pick your plant milk. Again, back then it was like, there was only a couple. Now there's 20 to choose from. So depending on what you're looking for, right? If you're really looking for, a burst of macros, right? Carbs, protein, and fat, then do the soy milk. If you're really looking for more fat, do the coconut milk. If you're kind of looking for almost all protein, go with one of the nut milks, or again, go with soy milk. So, I was looking for calories. So I would choose the most kind of, most protein rich, calorie dense plant milk. But the beauty of them all is you can select like that. And sometimes I would use two different ones, little coconut milk, a lot of soy milk. It just, so that, people don't think about mixing them or really looking at what they're after nutrient wise. Yeah, you want to go with one that you like to and tastes good, but, have fun with them, mix them up. And lunch for me was usually always before a weightlifting session. And so I could get away with a giant salad, because really cruciferous meals, I couldn't then go do like lactate threshold training right? You would vomit. So, but it was usually before a weight training session. So it, like big salads. I mean, I would put, basmati rice and all sorts of different beans and lots of cruciferous veggies again. And then I love pumpkin seeds and almond slices and every seed on the planet, I think is just, it's just this nutrient dense, packed little powerhouse. So all seeds all day long were all over my salads that give it a crunch. And then there was a weightlifting session. Usually if the weightlifting session was a kind of a boring protein bar, or a smoothie, it was just like, just get it in, you know what I mean? I didn't want to make anything. And then for dinner, I don't know if you saw that there's a scene in the Game Changers where I used to make these things that they started calling trough bowls. They're just gigantic Buddha bowls. So to your point, athletes it's not really that special of a diet. It's just usually a lot more than a sedentary person. So the Buddha bowl was a trough bowl. So it was like, as big as my head. And those, again, I would just go based off of, how you're always like, hey babe, do you want Italian tonight? Do you want Japanese tonight? Do you want Jamaican? Do you want, we think that way. We always have, do you want Mexican? Do you, what? And then I would make the plant bowl troughs based on, what I love. So if it was going to be, let's say Mexican, it was going to be, usually white rice with black beans and shredded lettuce and lots of avocado and tons of salsa. I'm a big fan of field roast Mexican sausages. They have quite a beautiful ingredient list, right? Not any crap. So I'd grill those up out on the grill and slice those on top. So I just would make these bowls. I like to make things in 15 minutes. I will not spend time over 15, 20 minutes in the kitchen. I don't really like to cook. So the bowls were an easy way. I mean, they're not necessarily pretty, but they're delicious and they have all the nutrients you need. So if you don't like to cook, try a layered bowl and you're good.
Yeah, no, it's easy. It is. It absolutely is. Especially if you batch cook. You just batch cook in the Instant Pot. You've got a big thing of rice.
You're right.
You've got in the refrigerator. So you've got all the ingredients that you can just pull out and then just layer it. And
yes, and I'm even too lazy to batch cook. I mean, that's what we're dealing with here. It's bad. So I end up with, see my bag of beans here, Philo's.
Okay.
I mean, that's what I was eating when we got on this Cuban black beans. Like I'll just eat a bag of beans and they're flavored with wonderful spices though. Yeah. But yeah, I've always thought it would be great to batch cook, but I haven't done it. So for all of you lazy folks out there in the kitchen, there's the easy way too.
Okay. Well, you don't have a lot of time either when you were training and stuff like that to do the cooking and all that. I mean, that's kind of secondary. So yeah. So
yeah, I guess I should say you're right. It's not, it's when you batch cook, obviously, yes, then the week is easy. So it's not a matter of easy or not easy. It's a matter of, I don't enjoy the kitchen.
Right.
So batch cooking is going to require, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours on a Sunday. Right. And it's like, no, thank you.
I got other things. I'm out riding my bike.
Or I like going to the farmer's market. Like I like food and creations, but I don't like to spend myself in the kitchen. And a lot of people are like that. So yeah. Bags of beans.
I get it. Okay. So what did you do specifically for recovery in regards to food, drink after like an intense training session? Like, what was your go-tos?
It was always either, depending on the season, soups, smoothies, and bars, because you're just dealing with a lot of gut distress from the training and the lactic acid settling in your stomach. So it was never, after a really hard training session, you're never like, oh, what am I going to eat? It's like, bleh, yes, a couple hours later you might be, but you have to get something in within 30 to 40 minutes to start recovering. So it's never that savory of an idea. So it would always end up being soups, smoothies, or a bar. It was just like, get it in, just get it in. That was where the force feeding came in, which, people that aren't training at that level, I don't need to do that anymore. I have not force fed in, 10 years because it's not necessary. So, but I am still very in tune with, even when I come home from just like a couple hour mountain bike ride with my husband, that, I'm going to feel better the next day if I get recovery food of some sort in quickly. If you wait a couple of hours and then you've broken down your system, you'll feel it the next day. So even for people that, we're just kind of like exercising on a daily basis. And if you go a little harder one day, get those recovery nutrients in within like a 45-minute window. Because so many people, you're like, oh, I felt great. That was fun. And then they go do things for 3 or 4 hours. And then the meal is like, 3 or 4 hours later, and they've missed a key recovery window, and you'll feel it the next day. You'll be like, oh gosh, I'm kind of sore. I don't feel. So I like to tell people to give that a try. And it doesn't have to be 1,000 calories. It can be 250 calories that you get in like 45 minutes later. It's just get in a nice combination of carbohydrates and protein.
Nice. Okay. So what are some of your favorite snacks that you like to eat, for recovery, or just snacking in general? Because I know you have to, as an athlete, you have to have little micro mini meals like all day.
Yeah. I don't know these people at Philo's, but bag of beans is one of my key recovery. I feel like I should charge them after this, but like, I have a bit of a bean obsession. I just feel fantastic when I eat a lot of them, it's just all that fiber, and I feel full, and that is a, it's a nice feeling, because then you don't have to worry about food for another 3 or 4 hours or whatever. So those are still, I'll come home from a mountain bike ride, and if for some reason I'm in a rush, I'll pop one of those and for, heat it up and do that. But nowadays, I'll make a big salad when I get home. I get a little bit more, time now. I'm not having to train 3 times a day. So yeah, I think I tend towards a lot of the same stuff that I've already, the recovery foods that I've already gone over. Summertime, nothing better than a smoothie after a hot, dusty, sweaty mountain bike ride. Because my husband and I usually do that together. So I just make get the blender out and put everything that we have in the freezer in there and blend it up.
Right. And that's an easy one. That's easy.
Mm-hmm.
That's a super easy one. Okay. Game day. Did your diet change? How did you prepare for the big day?
Yeah. So it depends on, what the big day is. It depends a lot on and this is kind of interesting, I think, because it plays into the mind and the emotions and the soul and what's happening for you as a human. But let's say, before the Olympic qualifying, or before a national championship race, or before a world championship, something where you're going to be dealing with a lot of stress and a lot of nerves. I had to be very specific about how I planned my food around that, because when you're really nervous and stressed, you don't have an appetite usually. So then you can easily get yourself in trouble real quick with just, not putting enough nutrition in. So I would wait the night before meal heavier than I normally would, knowing that the next day is going to be tough. Track cycling it's in the evening, because that's when the crowds come out. So road cycling is easy. You get up at 7 a.m, the race starts at 9, and you don't have to think too much about food, just to eat some breakfast and get on your bike. But we had to make it a whole day, and you're kind of stressing that whole day. You do one session on what we call the rollers. So you are having like a 30-minute kind of sweat session, but you're waiting to perform it till like 7 o'clock at night. So it would be loading the night before with about 500 to 600 more calories than I would normally put in at dinner. And then also loading breakfast, because usually when I would wake up, my whole system and nerves, hadn't quite started yet. I could usually get, and at breakfast I was putting in about 300 to 400 calories more than a normal breakfast. So then I'm loaded. People call it carb loading. It was a combination of nutrients and loading. And I like to, after I went plant-based, I learned to really focus so much more on the micronutrients than the macros. And you just kind of automatically get the macros in if you focus on the micros. I just think that's just such a beautiful scenario. So it would be that. And then it was little, as the day went along and the pressure started to build and everything, it would be little teeny tiny bites of food all the way into the night. Like I really just had to, if I could take a bite of a bar, or if I could, drink a half of a smoothie, and our our team soigneurs were wonderful. What can you get in? And I would say, I think I could take like half a protein shake. Okay, here, chug it. And it was just, that's not normal life. Like you're not going to go through that, but it made you think a lot about food and nutrition and gut distress. And, you couldn't go to 7 p.m. without enough calories. I mean, you couldn't, you would not be there as the best version of yourself. So it was very, very specific planning.
Wow. The Olympics. I mean, every athlete's dream. Share with us about this incredible day. What do you remember the most? I mean, honestly, I was weeping in the movie, that you guys made. Oh. Honestly, I was just like, oh my God. I mean, what you did to get there. Wow. It was incredible.
Well, I think every athlete has a unique story. As you know, from my story, I didn't, grow up thinking I had the potential to be an Olympian at all. It's something that I found later. And because I was an older athlete, I wasn't going to the Olympics at 18. I was going to the Olympics at 39 and a half. I felt very blessed and lucky, whatever the word is, that I was able to very much sink into the experience. I kind of thought, I'm probably not going to be here again. Like, this is probably not going to be like the 44-year-old. This is probably it. And so I worked for a couple of years with my sports psychologist on just really being present throughout the whole experience. And also I suffered from nerves really badly, really, really badly. And I also had imposter syndrome, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But because of those two things, I had to do quite a lot of mental and emotional work leading into the London Games. And so because I had done all that work, it did serve me on that day, on our qualifying ride, and then in our semifinals and finals the following day, where our team, you saw the movie, we literally had the ride of our lives in qualifying. And, people always look at the medal rounds, but if you don't qualify to get in the medal rounds, you're not getting a medal. So qualifying is huge. And that semifinal ride against Australia, where we only beat them by 8/100ths of a second to take us to the gold medal match, that was like, we had never been able to produce anything close to that. And I don't think we would have ever again. It was like the moment in time when it's like magical. And it was magical. And the Olympics aren't always like that, right? Like you hear just the toughest, saddest stories sometimes, come out of Olympics. The 3-time world champion gets 7th, and that's the Olympic Games. And we just got, I don't know how we ended up hitting it on that moment, on that day, but it was kind of magical. And the podium was like an outer body experience, and completely. Like, I was like, I don't know where I am right now. This does not make any sense. It was very, even though we won silver, right? We didn't win gold, and we had to listen to God Save the Queen, the national anthem. But I don't know. It was interesting. Paul McCartney was in London, obviously. Paul McCartney was there. The Prince and Princess were there. The Queen was there. Paul McCartney sang after the British won. Like, it was just like, it was a wild, like, this is actually happening experience. But yeah, I probably won't forget it ever.
No. And just, I have to have a pat on the back to your husband, who came and stood by you for every moment, every waking minute, to make sure that everything was, here's the food. I go shopping, and let me duct tape the curtains, I mean, that was great. Yeah, it was brilliant. I mean, sleep, so much more important than we ever knew. I mean, and just all the things that he did, and it was there right by your side every minute of every day. And so kudos to him. So yeah, you married a good one there for sure.
I like how the documentary really shows. I mean, normally you would see females following their male athletic professional athletes around the world. And this really it's like 4 females with their husbands that moved to Spain to train for those many, many months before Olympics, and sort of shut down what they were doing work-wise and just came for support, and they were there for us every step of the way. And we, so it's a flip-flop of the story that is it's endearing.
It was clearly a team event, between the husbands and the wives, without question.
Yeah.
So, okay. Game Changers, the movie, powerful. And you were 39 and a half when you won that medal. The oldest person, male or female, to ever go to the Olympics in your sport. How is this possible when all others had been retired? I mean, what strived you to surpass the younger competition?
Well, I mean, we wanted it really bad. So, but they probably did too. It's just I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of answers for that question, a lot of possibilities. I think it's a combination of fruition of anyone's total journey. Mine was definitely one that started late, and I didn't ever even realize that potential was there until quite late. But when I saw that it could be a possibility, I went for it like I've never gone for anything in my life. I mean, I really wanted it. I think if I was the Aussies or the Kiwis or the Canadians, who are those very, very young teams, right? As I mentioned before, they were, 19, 20, 21, those team members. If I had gone to the Olympics in 19, 20, 21, I would have been a complete basket case. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to handle it. Not that they didn't handle it. They did a beautiful, incredible job, but it's super overwhelming. I mean, it's definitely, and it's kind of, it's just a lot for a young person, So I think honestly, as much as the age was, you could say from traditionally speaking, it was a disadvantage. Now that I've experienced it all, I think it was a huge advantage to be 39 and a half from many aspects of the whole journey. And then they're actually at the Olympic Games, and my teammates, Sarah and Jenny, they were 3-time Olympians by that point. So they were 10 years older than their competition. I was 20 years old in the competition, but they were a little bit, older as well. They were 29 instead of 19. And they had both experienced Athens and Beijing. So they brought so much experience to the whole scene and helped me a lot in the prep. So I think it's interesting to look at ages of Olympic medalists, but I think, as long as the body will do what it's supposed to do, it's a bit of an advantage to come in a bit older.
Yeah. And well, you certainly showed us that's for sure. Wow. Oh my goodness. In the movie Personal Gold, you learned a lot of variables that affect athletes, sleep, diet, body type, changing the blood oxygen levels, many that had been not measured before really, or tracked. Were they all of equal value to improving your performance, or was there one that just really took you to the next level?
Yeah, it was an interesting timing that film. That was around the period of time where what was known as the quantified self movement was just starting to catch on, and some of the conferences way before even the biohacker conference, like where people were starting to recognize that they could measure human performance from an internal perspective, right? Not just from an external, like how much you can bench press. So using the different bits of technology we did was fascinating, because as cyclists, we had quite a bit of information on our bikes for years because we had power meters. So, and the power meters came out in 2000. So for the whole time you had quite a bit of intel. I mean, watts, heart rate, speed, cadence. I mean, you knew everything that was happening on the bike, but you're only on the bike, let's call it 6 hours a day or something, or more or less. And so you have 18 hours a day or so that you're in repair and recovery. And it's like, what's happening in your body? That's a lot of hours, 18 hours every single day. So this was really interesting to start looking into what was happening in our body in those 18 hours. So, were we optimizing our recovery and our rest? Were we optimizing our REM and our deep sleep cycles when we were sleeping? So as you could see in the film, there were certain aspects that were really helpful to each woman in a different way. Like for Jenny, because you were talking about that scene when they were taping her window, trying to make it cooler inside, because it's the optimal temperature to sleep is like 67. I still sleep at 67. It's freezing, but you sleep better. Your body gets more deep sleep. So that was really helping her a lot, as well as a glucose monitor, which people think of those for diabetics, but as an athlete, you have to have like sufficient levels of glycogen store, because if you don't, you'll run out. Your brain works off of glycogen almost entirely, right? Like your brain doesn't operate off of fat or protein. It's glycogen. It's sugar. It's carbohydrate. And so she was really learning a lot more about when she needed to eat and how much, and what, from measuring her glucose. And I was really learning a lot about my repair and my recovery from using an oxygen saturation monitor. So looking at where my resting heart was when I woke up, but also my saturation, my oxygen saturation. It would tell me if we used to just call it flogged as cyclists. So if you're just like dead, flogged, if you're just wake up flogged, my oxygen would be at sea level, because it's different at altitude, at 94. And that was kind of the red flag of, whoa, you are really, you're really deep, you're really flogged. We're going to have to take a little bit more of a rest day. And then, optimal oxygen is obviously 100. Usually if I would wake up at 98 or 99, we knew things were good to go. So yeah, it was a fascinating period to be able to use all of that information. And we'd been using it all for, a couple of years before is really when the knowledge kind of came out.
It's powerful. And even today, like, we've got Fitbits, that can measure sleep and, and deep sleep. It goes into REM sleep. What did you do to optimize for those to help get you more deep sleep, more REM sleep?
So Jenny was working a lot with the cooling of the room. She would wake up, because we had like head monitors, and it's a company that's out of business now called Zeo, that would download in the morning and you could see your entire night's sleep. And she was having choppy sleep. And once she cooled down the room, it was way more consistent. For me, I have a gold medal in sleeping. I have just never had any trouble. I just sleep like a dead person, and always have. So that wasn't one of my weak spots that I needed to dive into and tickle around. And, I used the Zeo a few times. It was interesting to look, but it was like, even the scientists were like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, you're good. You'd look at my graph the next day and it was almost all deep. And you could see when I would get up, go pee, but I was falling back asleep within like less than a minute, which is, that's not normal for people. So I just, it was like, okay, I don't need to, hone in on this anymore. Like I'm already there in the sleep category. Yay, me. So yeah. It was fascinating to figure all that out, because, I wouldn't have necessarily been able to tell you if my sleep was solid. I mean, I felt good when I woke up for the most part. I felt like I was sleeping, but Sarah was a good example of, she felt like she was getting good sleep, but the Zeo showed she wasn't a lot of times. So then she had to, do some pre-bed meditation, just work on it and to become better.
Wow. Well, our body is like 3/4 water. What did you do for hydration? When is the ultimate or the optimal time to hydrate, before for practice and also for game day?
Well, we would usually do a measurement of how much fluid loss we thought was going to happen on game day or just on training day. And again, that was seasonal, right? In Southern California in the summer, like can easily be 100. So that's very different fluid loss than if it's 50. So we would just do it as a measurement of what we, the fluid loss by, peeing after it, we would actually measure it. And then we would know for ourselves what we were probably looking at. So it was just getting that in before and during training to not end with a yield of the loss when you were finished. And sometimes you would, because you just couldn't get it all in, but then you knew exactly how much you needed to replenish with after you got off the bike. So, but it wasn't always like a drink mix. I mean, I did use a carbohydrate drink mix, but it wasn't always that when I would get off the bike. Like just tons and tons of fruit, melons and watermelon. I'm a huge cantaloupe fan. And since I'm from Kentucky, I eat salt and pepper on it. Yes, I do. And it is so good. But that's like the perfect combination post training is a cantaloupe. So a melon with salt, because you're looking to replace those electrolytes. So it tasted so good. And, you don't always have to drink your hydration, right? So that's where the wonderful, I mean, obviously vegetables like cucumbers have a ton of water too, but not as quenching as melons. I could get off the bike and I could eat like an enormous Tupperware of melon. Like it just, and it's so hydrating to your cells. And you just feel, you get hydrated after a hard effort and hard workout. And you almost feel like a new person. I mean, dehydration is really gnarly. It makes you feel terrible. I'm convinced that most people walking around are dehydrated. I mean, we know that from statistics. And that's probably 70% of why they feel like crap. It does a lot of nasty things to your body, and it just feels terrible. I mean, I can really notice when I'm not hydrated and can feel it. So keep the electrolytes going, right? Water, absolutely. But make sure to have some electrolytes in there, because that's what we're looking for. That's the balance, right? The electrolytes. Like if people don't realize that there's a literal electrical system running through our bodies, right? And if it's not balanced, all sorts of funkiness happens. And hyponatremia is from drinking, right, too much water without electrolytes. So many people will go, gosh, I feel so thirsty and I just had so much water. And you're like, you need the sodium, potassium, the magnesium, all the electrolytes for balance. Absolutely.
100%. You're words to my ears, music to my ears, I should say. I just have to ask, this question. Do you still get the, where are you going to get your protein question? Do you still get that?
Yes, it's decreased though. So yay. It's almost like the naysayers have kind of gotten hip to that fact that like, it's just completely ridiculous to not understand that there's lots of protein in so many other foods. So I get more now, just straight up, I couldn't do what I do without meat. Like it's almost turned into more of a, I'm going to tell you. And I'm like, I didn't ask. So, okay, thanks. Good luck with yourself. Like I think we're experiencing that. It's not so much of a curiosity anymore. It's that phase where they fight with us. And then, that famous Gandhi quote, and we're on our way to like it being accepted.
It's true.
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah,
absolutely. 100%. Well, what about eating out? I know you like travel and, when competitions, things like that. Mm-hmm. Did you struggle finding food to eat? If you went out to eat, finding things to order, and what did you order?
Yeah, I don't find a struggle anymore. But 10 years ago, sometimes it would be like a little bit like, just, okay, I'm just going to have some iceberg lettuce and some crackers.
A piece of cucumber, one piece, and then cherry tomato.
Totally. And,
Yeah.
and then I just go home and eat. It was kind of like, whatever. This is how I'm choosing this for a very specific soulful reason, and then turned into a performance reason. And so I'm just gonna, it's fine. I mean, it would happen, I don't know, not that often, once a month. I mean, it wasn't that often. Now it never happens. Now, I mean, I'm from Kentucky and I still go back to visit. And I will say, it still happens there every once in a while, but I mean, every once in a blue moon, and we know where to go eat. My whole family is vegan-ish. So many more options have opened up, but you'll still go to if you go to a real traditional steakhouse, Southern type of restaurant, it really is kind of bizarre to look at the menu where you're like, literally all my choices are dead animals. Like there is not another choice. It's kind of a mind bender now today, like really, and I've asked for special meals there, just special meaning, can I just have a plate of like rice and vegetables? And I see rice on the menu, and I see that they have a Brussels sprout with their 40-ounce steak. And they will say things like, I don't think we have any of that. And last time I was home and I was out with my best friend at dinner, and I couldn't help myself. I was like, so you're only serving dead animals tonight? Like, that's it? That just dead things? I can't get a Brussels sprout that came. I mean, it was just like, what are you saying? Hopefully all the people that are eating animals are also eating a ton of vegetables. And, like everybody has gotten the memo that we need to eat vegetables, I think. So it was a bizarre experience. So it's still every once in a while, but you know what? Just kind of have a little laugh. I ordered like 7 of the same salads, and it was delicious. And that's what I ate. I'll just take, I got 1 and it was really small. So I said, I'm going to need 6 more, and I'm going to just put it in a bowl and just kind of have fun with it. Cause it's, we're living in a time now where it's so much more awareness. There's so much more curiosity about what a plant-based style diet looks like. And so almost every restaurant you go to, they've got they either have a section on the menu, or they have, they'll point out the options, and they're delicious, and the chefs are getting creative and having fun with it. And now I just don't find it hard at all, except for that one place in Kentucky. I won't be returning to it until they get something on the menu that is not dead.
Well,
like
I also found if you can call ahead, if you know where you're going, like out to eat, and if you can call ahead and say, what can you do for me? This is what I eat, and what can you do for me? And a lot of times, like I went to this place in New York City, it's now closed, called Blue Smoke. It's the antithesis of how we're supposed to eat. I mean, like seriously, like, Southern fried, everything. Yeah. And so we went there for the school, and we got inside, and I called ahead. And first, I said, I explained, that we're coming there with this group, and could you do something for me? And after she stopped laughing, because like everything on the menu, like you said, was pretty much, that's all we got. Yeah. Everything that's unhealthy, the process that you could possibly imagine, this is what we're going to give you. And so the chef, she finally said, well, the chef does like a challenge. I'll talk to him. And cool. He came out with the most beautiful, first of all, the presentation of the salad was incredible. And then gave me a dish, and it was like he's, baked some sweet potatoes and drizzled some, some balsamic. And the presentation was incredible. And everybody's looking at my plate going, hey, kid, where'd you get? Hey. And I'm like, mine.
That is so true, because it's so colorful.
I know.
So it's attractive to look at. I one time I was speaking at a conference that wasn't plant-based, and it was the night before dinner for the speakers was a steakhouse, and I had told the people before, the wonderful organizers, like I won't be able to eat, and they said, oh my gosh, there's a raw vegan place down the street. We'll go get you like a big thing of whatever, and they just gave it to me at the steakhouse. And same thing. Everybody has their brown dead steaks and their baked potatoes, which love baked potatoes, and their wilted salad. And they had made me, it was a raw lasagna. So it was just
Ooh.
filled with color. Like it was huge too. Like it was bigger than my head. It was so much food. And the whole table was like, what did you order? I want that. And I was like, well, yeah, you're not having it. It's mine. Like you said.
mine.
That is always fascinating where the eaters are like, what is that? Because they just, sadly, like we did too, had, it's kind of a bad rap. You just think it's plant-based is just, or especially vegan, right? It's just going to be like sad salad.
So yeah, you're eating the grass clippings and the tree bark. Is that what we got for dinner tonight? Yeah, no,
exactly.
I'm such a foodie. No.
Right. That's the statement, right? They're too much of a foodie.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, because the food is amazing. And it's so much more, I think, variation than I had before.
Yeah, I know. I agree.
It's endless. It's just the only limit is your imagination. And there's, before back in the day, you had to eat seasonally. And, apples came out in the fall. And, now I get my Honeycrisp apples all year long. And I'm like, yeah, because like Honeycrisp apples, you can't beat that. Oh, my God. I mean, like the flavor, the texture,
good.
the crunch,
So
whoa. And the nutrients. Oh, my gosh. When you start to dive into this, it's so awesome. It really is. And showing how your body just responds, Okay, what are 3 things someone can do to help start this journey to optimize their diet as an athlete?
Well, I think one thing, I mentioned it earlier, but it was so critical for me, is get in discovery mode, right? Don't get in rule making mode and have to mode. And this is how, if I don't do it perfect, I'm quitting mode. Because that's an athlete's head. Like we'll easily do that, all right, I'm starting tomorrow. This has to be absolutely flawless. So get in discovery mode, just start adventuring through food. And like you were saying earlier, gosh, it's endless, the flavor. Second is perfectionism. Perfection itself is an illusion. I promise you, it does not exist. And so that's another athlete's brain is going to go, if I screw it up, I'm just going to just quit and do something else. Right. So don't do that to yourself, because that will definitely take out the fun. And you're on a journey. So, play around with it and just keep discovering and keep having fun, and your plate will turn over eventually to almost all plants or entirely plants. So don't set a lot of rules, right? Keep discovering and have fun with it, and don't berate yourself. That is it. I see so many just people do that on their route to a plant-based diet, right? I think here's the problem. It just sucks that we say diet at the end of plant-based, because a diet's a diet. People think you do a diet, you got to do it right. If you don't do it right, you fail. That's what that means. End of story. It is for sure a lifestyle, a way of eating, a culinary experience, nutrient dense, like explosion. We could call it all those things, but we need to remove diet, because that is where the perfectionism comes in, I think, when people hear that word. So yeah, just have fun and keep discovering, and still bring your keen sense for science and evidence, desiring evidence to the table, because most athletes are like that. They want to see the proof, and they want to see the evidence, they want to see the science. So, lean into learning about the difference between macronutrient and micronutrients, what a phytonutrient is, what a phytochemical is, really same thing, and why they are so powerful for repair and recovery and energy and strength and what they do in your body. Because then you come to the table armed with information, and then you start making, even better choices.
It's so true. And I always think of it as peeling back layers of an onion, because as you go through an onion, there's layers, and there's things that are going to work better for you, because every person is going to react differently. Some may not react well to nightshades, some react to gluten, some react to caffeine, and you have to find what's going to work for you to maximize your athletic ability.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, that's you're right. You should maybe go into this field. Oh, you're already in it. Yes.
Well, not for athletes, that's for sure. But
it's
to
the
help
same. It's
people
just more. It's really the same, especially in the plant-based world, like the traditional omnivore world. It's not the same because most Americans are on a junk food diet, and that would not be what the omnivore athletes hopefully are fueling themselves with. But yeah, and you can have beer and French fries, and sometimes I'll have those after a race. But a plant-based diet, but it tends to lend itself to just being cleaner. So it really is every person's diet. It's just, as an athlete, I just put a lot more of it in, because you need more calories.
Well, I always think of it as, when I win lotto,
Okay.
my first purchase, 1969 metallic blue convertible Corvette. That's my
Wow.
car. That's it right there. Driving
Okay.
down the highway, it's going to say "Eat Plants" on the license plate.
Good.
But kerosene, fantastic fuel. It runs jets. It runs all kinds of things. But if you put that kerosene into that car,
Yeah.
you're going to kill that engine.
Yeah.
And this is a high performance vehicle. I don't know about you, but this is a high performance
There you
vehicle
go.
right here.
That's
So,
right. Speak
Just
it.
saying. Oh, it has been such a pleasure and such an honor to get to know you. And I'm very grateful for your time. So thank you so much.
Thanks. I can't wait to meet the kiddos. And thank you. This was lots of fun. I appreciate you having me on.